So in summary, the New York speed test, get the proofs that are out there about how the colleges, the geopolitical campuses, shared different um, narratives denying what they knew together, their agencies, their legal natures, with roles, with colonization before our nation. In other words, teaching the world was flat, but knowing it wasn't, in relationship to justifications of them, in relationship to natures of terrorism and of war, that we have to understand first to understand it today, and with its roles with a method in linguistic fields not let realized, and how methodically with so in other words, when you and this in other words, if you in the future, this is the future of the internet, which is this: sites that are cartoons where you interact with the databases through the cartoon. In other words, and join me this in New York game. We're gonna which cartoon company will draw what I described. Which in other words, what's our mission? Our mission is bottom up. And what kind of industries could that aren't existent, don't even have competition, could be facilitated, even for a temporary period, just to give means where they're forsaken. In other words, we could organize this. They could have, they have fairs, right? Should have ones where people could have, in other words, force value where it's not let by business. In other words, too, not even against. Don't I don't even get into treating people in contexts that need voice that has never been let have in relationship to multi-front linguistic impositions with treatments of the fact with the differences not by accident, with legal nature, not treatments with voice, not in facts, not just with real legal natures, but with people like us who are I'm not a lawyer. In other words, but in other words, since before our founding, people who weren't lawyers, who weren't legal natures, needed to describe, even our presidents, even Abraham Lincoln, he needed to describe natures of organized crime that interscience has never let anyone have litigation natures and nature and not and so many impositions they have to treat business as the surface value of the Constitution and not have free speech. In other words, Abraham Lincoln didn't have free speech. So no, and there were long-term interests with the same terror methods that put these terror laws there methodically, only let realized, trained by the only let realized most sophisticated, only let realized gain sophistication on justifications of the exploitation of law and of self relationships that was is mass evil, not like by accident. In other words, this is why the tree of life is discerned distinctly from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the beginning of the story with the Old Testament. In other words, in relationship to the law, where the law doesn't have the credibility, self-defending itself as a predatory litigation nature, and with legal nature, lies and delusions juxtaposed to that in relationship to treatments of facts to all areas, measured only that realized that way. In other words, in relationship to justifications of jobs and business. So, and then two, because like men like Donald Trump, right? Because he's a businessman, he's already confined to interests in relationship to business and stuff that is stuck this way. Well, I don't know if he's a. I guess if he's a president, he could. It's different. But in relationship to the treatment to the women, that is disgusting, right? But what is worse is what can't teach in the first place about real law, because it's playing these games, trying to hurt out what hurts education wise in the first place. In other words, it's not by accident we don't have a capable American history, and we have it claimed that way with lies and delusions by the only realized legal nature, because only they realize not in just in relationship to business, but in other words, that's the dream that's being taught in relationship to faiths and other experts and databases and treatments of law that we're told fundamentally are fundamental when we're in grammar school. And, basically, and then it's not let with all kinds of litigation and tricks. In other words, if they don't follow the law too, they don't follow basic law, and they tell everyone to sue in relationship to in other words, well, anyway, for the speed game, we need a cartoon. This is how we're yeah. In other words, for the areas that are explored, we make cartoon character for it. All right, and in other words, too, we all need a health care, so we make it, and there's all kinds of levels to it. In other words, too, and there's ways you go on by paying, or use ways you can gain value because then you're not like you're getting when you want to go levels, you have to have a advertisement above your head, you know, and that shows the too that you can't do certain things, but because we put value towards what is timeless, what we always need, in relationship to we're gonna have to shift to a new value nature system. In other words, there's only one that will bring, that is real law, that is positive, unchanging. But we never had the language to defend that, and not by accident, because the inter-science roles with nature of organized crime from all ages up. So even every branch, even our judges are victim to it. I mean, that's why they don't know what to do with it, with the negative value nature progression on courts every day. Because people are being told not to do things, and they're putting more and more law things into place. But no, people don't even realize the laws are getting higher, and everyone's doing this. We have all kinds of more terrors and crime progressions because of not by accident. The way other ones were always juxtaposed to the narratives being put in the databases. In other words, in history, in other words, that's with our standards that were built to stay breached with colonization's terror laws, not just against one person, but not just against Native Americans, but to divide and to work them incapable of member of them, not understanding, even remembering what happened to them. That's what they want to know. They want us to admit what we did to them. Native American chiefs on Facebook, they say that. See, no one has free speech though, because why? The only reason no one has free speech is because no one will defend the truth that demonstrate mistreatments of organized crime, of criminal enterprises, of criminal insidiousness is the most important thing to understand. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not police. But criminal insidiousness, how do I know this then? Because if you're going to have an internation gang, an internation organized crime group of associates, right? Internation, so they're going to be exploiting humanity here with internation leveraging. If you're going to have that, and you're going to have that with that, all those juxtaposed to an organization relying upon the same needs to lie, as measured tool natures, as the most sophistication natures only let, but them as only wrongdoers in relationship to what they don't understand. That is allowing them, that they're leaning on for advice for leverage to help them, the nations, keep going in self-defense nature, and treatments of the law with language as is. This is what religions are about. It's not by accident. It's about ancient revelations were criminally re-engineered. Even if this is wrong, it is most plausible. And not only is it most plausible, it's got answer. It's the answer, because this is what Muhammad, alhamdulillah, thank God, said. He respected the messengers that came forward. In other words, demonstrating, implying too. In other words, as Jesus has leave cipher with proofs of it, with the A and the W, with English, saving English. Don't forget, right after they killed Jesus, what are they going to do? They killed Caesar. Jesus was born right in the wake of the state murder of Caesar. Federal, So what they did was criminally re-engineering narratives. But this is in relationship to the only one sign. They don't understand. They're just natures in relationship to the only realized nature. Since ancient times before them, the republic was broke because the republic was a system of humanity, understanding that we are male, female, and species, in demonstration of the nature of the Trinity, always, not just that way. It's us, it's earth, and it's an unchanging body of consciousness diffusing through it. Matter fills a void with absence of the complete nature of unchanging positive, can't be in its temporary value nature. And Allah's name is demonstrably used to teach this with English before the Quran even. And this is why the Quran and Islam help save English, by saving algebra, which I'm going to call algebraic consciousness, in relationship to the numbers, the letters being shown to what's juxtaposed with the numbers. We're going to learn about the three natures of zero. I didn't read this. This through correlation. All this through understanding is with English. Why? Because what is the law? Is language. Is the distinctions we make. And is also necessary that we demonstrate applications with each science connected to linguistic fields that we lost to in the Revolutionary War. For example, connected to treatments to date and regarding Abraham Lincoln. And that's my prior video. What I'm trying to say here is we need to understand the nature of criminal insidiousness that was juxtaposing other criminal insidiousness natures. Criminal insidiousness, obviously, if you're doing things that are internation, that are going to create predicate acts and exploit humanity, right? And it's going to affect their education and everyone's time and positions, and it's going to create illusions, and it's going to be blaming it on other things. It's going to be causing people to think other lies and delusions, and to have motivations to further these things. Negative value nature progressions caused by internation criminal enterprises. And now what we're talking about in this game, we're going to set up, with a cartoon too. This means not just one cartoon. In other words, this is a life process. In other words, we're going to give five. We're going to start five prayers. We're going to give. We're going to do like this is like interreligion telethon, like for money, and then we're going to just give that to whisper from branches, one to each branch to invest whatever they have, and then because then they're gonna and we don't even we don't touch it, so we know nothing will happen illegal with it. And in other words, we leverage the means to build force evolution, bottom up in all ways, always. In other words, the same exact identity wants its immediate longing, is longing its immediate identity everywhere. It is, but it's not by accident. This is with a linguistic method outside of courts, outside of legal natures, outside of the law, that only let the law realized connected to itself in a trap. And for example, it's not even debatable. They forced they haven't they have blamed on lies and delusions, colonization's terror methods and laws, and causes which were internation agencies and legal natures only that realized by campuses, for example, that knew the world was flat. I knew the world was round, but were teaching it was flat in relationship to the lies they had to get away with telling. So you have to tell other lies. You understand? So, and then there's context with the law are not like two people fighting. So the nature of the lie is in relationship to premise treatment. And so what they want and need with us for to have prejudice treatment is to entertain not real facts, but prejudice narratives, and to teach that in relationship to what by teaching that you're right in line with the lies and needs and the guises that insidiousness natures with the most innocent age groups are who have connections to adults with the most insidious things. That's where the problems are coming from. Like in California, see these TV shows about the gangs in the schools, and with the prison cycles, and the nature of human standards below even the terror laws forced before we even had cars with homes worse. No care for humanity because business is put first, not by accident, not because of money, because legal nature captivation, the laws, because of the nature of organized crime that we haven't obfuscated from our ability to understand. And no one understands that because the people only realize only by the time they get to that have been exploiting it, have to self-defend treatments of the law that have failed us. They have failed the war on poverty. In other words, the only reason it's hard to think about these issues is because the only way realize to talk about them is actively with active indifferences to what's actively exploiting it. And in other words, roles with that in relationship to political narratives about what politics are that are predatory to what law is by what is unchanging positive always. Marbury versus Madison. What is real justice must satisfy all justice, appearances of justice always. In other words, always inside the nature of the law too. It doesn't mean to pretend that means something else than it does. It means always. It means don't fake being justice. You see, and we have that not explained. How our legal natures were and do fake justice even to themselves in relationship to only what they were trained. In other words, with treatments of the facts forced only let realize with summary convictions with lies and delusions in relationship to not explaining what criminal insidiousness is. Now, what is criminal insidious? How do you know if you're not a lawyer? Because think about it, an internation criminal enterprise, especially ones criminally legalized as nations, criminally legalized criminal enterprises. In other words, as natures with all kinds of policing natures in internation, medical, and prison juxtapositions that use terror originally and through time to justify her conviction natures only let realized explaining the law. In other words, no one's explaining the law, but as roles with the insidiousness natures needed with next to the shadows. You know what I'm saying? Next to next to where it gets hot, between the dark and light. You see, to clear. Who'll hear me there, New York? We play this game. You know, picture a big hall. Which whichever whichever what is it called? The cartoon software, wherever cartoon software people will draw. Like, so just draw a hall and draw one character for each branch of government, and draw one character for each one character for ex presidents, and draw one character for ex what is it called, vice presidents, and then draw five characters for healthcare, and it will be all about charity, you know, with the entrance, and we'll figure out a way how you know after, because everyone needs coming into life and going out of it, and some people, you know, throughout life we need health care, but we also have to understand the nature of the impositions upon the law in relationship to linguistic fields we demonstrably lost to in the American Revolution. So criminal insidiousness is our needs to have the lies and illusions maintained, blamed on other things. You see what I'm saying? In other words, to have the ability to make good people come across needs to hide insidious things too. Criminal enterprises make wrongdoers, and they make in relationship to this too, because the wrongdoers are feeding off the criminal enterprise and the needs of associates of criminal enterprises that they don't understand. Per my understanding, you know, and per what was communicated about this in relationship to when we talk about other countries and sanctions, you know, it was because everyone's following negative value nature progressions with terror's methods and natures pretending to be stability on, in other words, multi-front Oz, tool nature, most sophisticated natures, because they're not sophisticated. This is the trick. All nations lost this, which is interscience. It leaves everyone blaming negative value nature progressions, hurt conviction natures, progressions, hurt indifference nature progressions, and group thinks, and social just giving up and shared indifferences with facts treatments and with human standards, and what's really the cause of them actively exploited and actively staying, and what's really the cause of the hurt that comes back from it and goes into it, you know, because we're not having honest correlation allowed. We're not having ratiocination allowed, and as a species, and because we have nations defending pseudo identities as nations in defense in relationship to natures of organized crime that they don't understand how and where internation and capable of it between nations that don't even like each other. So what motivations would they have to play each other while hating each other? In other words, in relationship, for example, with the geopolitical ISIS narratives with radical Islam, when both them and the geopolitical same foreign natures that forced us to already entrenched here, which terror laws before our founders were even born, the same ones. These are the ones with the needs to have everyone go after radical Islam, while the sciences are obfuscating how religions are about the understanding. So we understand that beyond our control, above our heads, below our feet, peripherally, always. I mean, horizontally, always. Positive, all the way around us, is beyond our control. Before and as the value of the finite, the nature of positive is beyond our control. But with the value of perception, with the nature of perception, is not beyond our control. The nature of it, not just our acts, but our nature, because our nature is in demonstration to us as itself, as its own positive identity. In other words, our nature is in demonstration to all the cells of our body of itself. You understand? In other words, they all share. Our whole body shares one common positive identity, and it's not just its own positive nature. And when its own positive nature is not let three ways, because of the way it's in temporary value nature, which is with the nature inherent to consciousness too. For example, with indifferences, masked in relationship to what's actively exploiting. At the same time, while that's masked, social interactions are with opinion natures that aren't real, and justifying it in relationship to lies and delusions told to selves, and trained to be told to selves, and glorified with titles telling themselves that. What the hell is it talking about? In other words, we need to. In other words, these areas that are most exploited, you bring in means to do things for people like say they want to have a fear, have them control the area. You know, especially if you're kids, if you have kids and families and people forced to live in the standards worse than colonization, then you have to like bring in you're even entertaining business standards that ignore this. What you have to do is put the put the money down, not just, in other words, not to be owned by a person, but by a method. In other words, and how do you do that? You know, make a fair, announce it. You know what I'm saying? Make it. Other state people come in. Everyone help. You know, the rest of the state help the weakest part, and then the other parts. You know, if you have homeless people, it shouldn't be one homeless person. There's too many things. There's too many technology too. There's too many people with need. If you have, would you rather be homeless or sitting there in a mobile thing with a method out? You know what I'm saying? Work. Give them a thing to work with a looking through a camera at something that maybe no one else has time to look. But if someone know where to live, they're gonna do it. I mean, you can't. That's like almost like slave, but it's better than it's ridiculous. All you have to do, the law, is let free. They say that let the truth will set us free. I don't know who said that. It was Martin Luther King, but that's exactly what it means. The truth will set us free. Marbury versus Madison. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. That means in the background too. But in the background was only trained not to. So the background has to admit that it has opposite. It has, it was the victim. We're in a trap. Each nation, we have a common enemy. That's a good thing if we could understand that, because now what is negative we could turn it into a positive. For example, we can explain. In other words, we understand with the devil in relation to a criminal enterprise, and it's very theatrical. So we can make plays, we can make the cartoon about the devil, and we have the one that with the, in other words, we give the most exploited areas. We challenge the army to go mark out the most exploited areas, and to put the money to not so no, that's why it has to be more than healthcare. We have to have something that's just completely for life too. In other words, at the same time, in other words, we have to understand what we're going to admit, which is our roles in relationship to what insidiously and actively needs to lie about their roles with exploitations of all areas. So, in other words, there was a guy named Kung Hee. I only saw him for like a second on one TV one time, and he was saying something like, Jesus. I think he was talking about Jesus, or one of the someone was, or one of the someone. I think he was talking about Jesus was speaking, or someone was speaking, and he was saying, "Watch, when I say this, people they're going to react and they're going to come after me. They won't. They're going to get mad." In other words, it was a part of. In other words, he was talking about facts treatments, evidence fabrication natures. In other words, so he starts making a facts treatment that starts revealing the truth through correlation, and another nature, an insidiousness nature that needs to defend lies with the logic and justification of itself and glorification of itself, gets mad and see for something that is not even just telling the truth. You see what I'm saying? And so what I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to hate on any. I'm trying to say, you try to make peace, but there's three natures of peace, and there's one forsaken, not even let realized. So I'm not saying make the peace in relationship to contrast. That's what they're tricking America to do, and that's what they're tricking ISIS fighters to do. Because how? Because the first sequence nature of the Quran is about a nature of organized crime. Either that, or they're also these are multi-front linguistic sabotages of the way we need to talk about understanding freedom and the independence of it, the nature of consciousness. We can't speak honestly about this because we were sown into. We're only let realize this is why colonization had the terror laws connected to the infrastructure, not just to keep everyone forced to terror database relationships on too scary to even mention while they're playing theater, not realizing, seeding all kinds of multi-front narratives to the same net, which time impositions on the future, which is us, is what I'm trying to say too about Abraham Lincoln. In other words, his whole logic is contained in what is incapable, what stayed incapable of describing the nature of organized crime, the nature of criminal insidiousness juxtapositions, which is time consuming and not by accident, and gets worse and not by accident, and to stay in differences that are tactical and that are engineered in ways everybody missed. So we have to admit, before we don't look at it like we're broke, because one thing is you have to understand the value of metaphysics first, because if you can't discern through correlation what's inherent shared to everything, the space nature is positive always. Space nature is only unchanging positive nature. That's what we have to discern. That's what we have to do. And there's a game that wants to be rich, not, you know, that wants to, because it's got a whole New York to help it do it, and it's got the ideas. In other words, this is the future of the internet. Interactions with, in other words, then you go to this place, and then you're interacting. You know what I'm saying? And then we'll take guidance. In other words, we'll be able to have conversations with our government, with the branches of government that we would never be able to have, and we would have understandings of the impositions upon them that they in relationship to their roles with negotiations that they already made that are demonstrably each nation is getting hurt by it, self-defending it, and blaming it on other lies and delusions, not by accident. In other words, we have to admit not only peace, but that a forsaken nature of peace. There's three natures of peace. There's a peace you pray for when you don't have it at all. There's a peace that you pray for in relationship as a justification, as a method to avoid war. And there's a nature of peace that never needed it in the first place. But that's the one that was criminally re-engineered. Ancient revelations. This is what this is about. The criminal re-engineering of ancient revelations by the devil, by an organized crime method, an archetypal organized crime. To do what? To make juxtaposition of nations, self-defending natures with roles in relationship to internation, geopolitical campus, and legal nature, corruption, self-defending, natures only realized back to exploited, force shared, policing nature, forced, self-defended, self-glorified, breaching nature, hurt conviction nature roles, undiscerned. No one understanding the cause of it, just reaction natures to terrors that no one understood, that the devil played out, an organized crime method that stole the nature of internation nation relations by orchestrating theater, by orchestrating terror theater. In other words, that's where the nature of it in our root, and that's where the nature of it today from this. In other words, without nature of roles glorifying criminal insidiousness narratives with it, which is exactly mixed with how we failed to explain the points through history. Only just being Oz in relationship to masses of facts in relationship to these figures. When the facts we need are just points for correlation, but correlation in relationship to natures of organized crime. And see, that's where American. It's very simple. Little kids could understand organized crime. When you teach it this way, we don't teach it okay, this is Hitler, evil, and then they don't even know about Joseph Mengele and all the hurt that was made on the German people too. In other words, we have a common enemy, every single nation, and it's intercultural because it's interscience, the way it's interscience, and so it's between nations and natures of people that don't even like each other or pretend not to like each other, because we all naturally like each other, but no one's being honest with their opinion natures. In other words, like with that guy, the only time I see, and then he also saw him one time when he shifted into a accent, and he's trying to make a point. In other words, people are not honest with their opinions, and this is in relationship not just to money motivations and industry motivations, in relationship to what set everything up like this for indifferences to facts treatments and to methods on linguistic tricks and fields that we lost to in the American Revolution, that we lost to both sides in the Civil War, in relationship to how we still don't even have let understood northern roles with slavery. We don't have that let understood because we don't have the nature of organized crime understood with the colonization's terror laws. And that's exactly connected to examples of how there are only been mistreatments of Abraham Lincoln, with mistreatments of the North and the South, in the top-down legal nature roles only forced to share policing agreements. In other words, they have to share policing of the same market positions in our shared nations, with extended abroad as well, extended like this and all that. And then sharing those positions, we have, in other words, we don't have free speech. And not by accident. And that's what our founders wanted us to defend. That's where James Madison left off. What could he do? They were already entrenched here. And so we don't have this let understood. We have the insidious narratives that only let our top agency guys. Anyway, so New York speed game. That's what we have to do. Who will just draw something? Just draw a couple. What do I have to do? Put the thing, and we'll give an industry. We'll just make a whole bunch of industries and games all for in New York. And we're going to work with other states too. Every state who wants to put every state, every area, every state. That's what we have the Army do. And then what we do is make sure that they made it, they really told the truth. You know what I'm saying? It's a game, and then that forces the truth, that forces evolution, forces real positive value all ways. It does not ignore nature inherent to consciousness and human value nature systems. But to do this too, you can't be pretending that it's sensible, American history. You can't be pretending it's not juxtaposed with criminal insidiousness narratives caused by criminal, not just by internation criminal enterprise juxtaposed to our areas, and with only let realized criminally legalized criminal enterprises, nations, and natures of legal nature, policing natures in that, forced incapable of free speech themselves. And independence is tricked. This is with the methods by for the mass indifferences, and all that connected to it is more college in relationship to how they're getting away with exploitations and forcing fights about the law that are self-defeating, multi-front to the same ends. Time sabotaging, only that realized trained by the sciences. And then as industries playing the jobs game. See, that's why you can't define that's a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You can't define the law but with lies and delusions as an evidence fabrication nature if you're not trying to define it by what is positive always through correlation, not in relationship to business agreements with roles, with standards that demonstrably fails and exploited and are actively exploiting. But to see there's no way to do it because of the forced juxtaposition of summary convictions with insidiousness, in other words, in relationship to judgment of what is practical, what is actually moral. So again, we have the indifferences, and we have, in other words, evidence fabrication natures, only that realized by failed education because education is a method, not let. Because the way it's only let realized, standardized, broke, and worse than broke, and with our areas only let standardize exploiting all database relationships, especially to all areas of innocence together. We can't, our parents, and especially urban parents, never had the freedom to leave their kids with no problems. Not because of the people are bad people, because the nature of psychology with roles with this, and as psychology police, intercity, and with the databases, and not by accident with every nation in relationship to their juxtapositions with terror natures of jails, and with the pathology of the motivations in relationship to natures of crimes that have the doctors and the prison staffs and the legal natures and the criminals needing to tell the same lies and to the maintenance of the same crime needs for lies and to pretend fake hates and fake thing, have evidence fabrication roles, illusion facilitation roles together to all areas, and not by accident, since before our nation's founding, for known ways and for further demonstrable ways. So we don't have any place to make, unless it's too late. You can't make a police report with facts. They'll force lot. In other words, because what's really, because the what's really forcing the negative value nature progressions and lies attached to real crimes and to shared narratives with them, because is getting away with it, because we don't have free speech allowed, and we have offensive database stacking with lies, and we don't have writing allowed offensively, and then that's in relationship to them with the methods, with the same people, with the prisons and with motivations, and to cover up lie progressions in relationships, even to killers and things like that. Per recorded proofs. But then they also have laws where they could just say the person's delusional, or the person's and these are people with the delusions. These are evidence for they do things they call I forgot what they call it. But they make a panel. They call it paneling, and then they force drugs in you in prisons. These things are reportedly cause, demonstrably, they don't even know what they cause, and they don't care about reactions and things like that. And they're not honest. They're evidence fabrication nature. People are tortured, and they're calling themselves like they say, "Well, I'm not a guinea pig." Disgusting. It's like Joseph Mengele. It has to be attached to it. It's the same nature. In other words, that's political theater, but it's in relationship to linguistic terror methods, linguistic evidence fabrication methods. So here we go. To understand this, we have to understand the criminal insidiousness, not just in relation to an overtly criminal enterprise. We have to understand what juxtaposed them to all areas before we even had law, realized, would not, and was with roles with it, only realized with not incapable of the sophistication to understand it itself, the legal natures. Where all they knew was they had roles with terror database relationships, all kind of sick roles, because of the natures of the sciences together, multi-front in linguistic fields that we lost sophistication to treat, which would demonstrate that psychology itself delusion propagates. The ego, energy, energize God's omega. What's that mean? That means with the walls of our house too. There's three relationships. There's three natures, not just of peace, but there's three relationships to what is actively coming through Earth. See, this is why the Old Testament starts about a garden too, and about how the garden is lost, and about how to fix it with the garden, with the tree of life, and how about everything. And then watch my video about the three natures of zero. There is one zero as the nature of the bond to matter, and before, and as value through, and as the value inherent to all negative value nature, up to zero, the middle one that we know, that starts before one. Inherent to that zero. The third zero is the one at 10, after the one at 10. Before one, the zero, inherent to the zero, is another one, but it's invisible. This is in relationship to how the sciences are teaching together. And a conversation involved, for example, with the capital A, involved with how the space nature above the line in the middle of the capital A and the space nature below the line in the middle of the A, these are in a relationship that the sciences actively in one lesson together. I didn't even read this. This is demonstrable. The three parts of the A are supposed to teach about the Trinity. In other words, the nature of it, and with the 5 parts, the two space nature areas in it, all parts and subparts of English are with the same intonation lesson. This is why this is how it works. That each word, each letter spells out a word, and each word spells out a sentence. This is why it's no joke with the words they're inventing nowadays and treatments, obfuscations of the sciences, because this obfuscates what language needs for proper facts treatments and for proper indifference treatments. See, we have indifference treatments that aren't led in relationship to forced mistreatments of social phenomena, social opinion nature. You know, we have fraud opinion nature, only that realized as human opinion nature. It's not honest though. We have to understand natures of criminal insidiousness in relationship to natures of organized crime we weren't allowed to understand, and also our legal natures. Our most sophisticated agents weren't led to understand. This is what religions are about. How? How can we know this? For example, you could, in other words, for the examples I mentioned, for example, we use what we know is true always. In other words, it's not true always that our founders weren't with forced political theater. In other words, they didn't have free speech, but they glorified the Boston Tea Party as if they did. They don't explain that nature of organized crime right there. You see what I'm saying? They say, oh, this is liberation. They make it this is like an insidious narrative to say, to make it implied that it's good to make everybody think that they were brave, and that's what happened. This is like psychological hurting. In other words, this is where we understand the nature of organized crime, the breaching methods, the terror methods. The only reason that the Boston Tea Party had that courage was because they were counter-extorted by that was with James Madison, and with the Constitutional Convention. There was terror already entrenched here. So it was very, very, very frightening to stand up against the law, because the law wasn't a law. It was mass psychopaths, with roles, with juxtapositions, with other criminal enterprises, legalized, overtly criminalized, all criminal. You know what I'm saying? Mass serial killers. It wasn't prejudice. Everybody was prejudiced because everyone was nuts, because that was the sciences made. Terror, theater. So then, everybody's not nuts. Everybody's naturally wants good, but with their language, with trying to explain all the hurt. That's all that speaks is hurt, because no one had the means to explain it, and everyone was directed and measuring and prompted, invested to tell it on lies, and to stay roles measured, entertaining roles as evidence fabrication as hurt and indifference nature, conviction natures, and most importantly, tactically as indifference natures. With linguistic fields, the most important thing. See, this is a linguistic field. Why is it a linguistic field? Why isn't it? Because these, in other words, with the law, this is if you need to tell lies through nations, between nations, and keep having it blamed on other things, you need to have everyone else blaming it on other things. And that's what we're doing, and not by accident. That's the only way the science is let everybody invested to teach these things. We have like grammar school treatments forced upon the candidates. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they need everyone to be embarrassed and stuff like that. And they need everybody to hate. And they need everybody to have to only realize leaders teaching, only letting all ages of innocence experience law as a game of fight and hurt, because that's the nature of the businesses in relationship to this legal treatments. There's laws against not taking police reports, but then they just tell lies instead. And how can you sue for that? You have to have in other words, there are proofs of it too, of criminal uses of internal investigations and how. But no, everyone's fighting for facts treatments that are categorically, just to defend police nature, regardless of their roles with force, other natures of police and roles with all kinds of evidence fabrications, not by accident. This is we have to admit, people that didn't hurt people, they shouldn't be in jail. You know what I'm saying? If they didn't do things that are really bad, they shouldn't be in jail, and they shouldn't be making things up to put people in jail just because. What they did too is through time they maintain people to treatments, to the top down treatments too. This is too long. Make the cartoon. Which cartoon software company will help? Who will help? Let me just put it on the chalkboard so we could understand. We're going to make a value nature system. In other words, we want to work for the nation, but we're going to work for other nations too. We're going to give them ideas too. In other words, they can share. Everyone has the same thing to counter now. We have a common enemy. If we understand this, even just take it as a theory, it's a better plan, because it's not aimed. In other words, our aim is not with hate, and it's not with lies, and not with delusion. We're only looking for what's going to get in the way of what is going to actively reveal positive value nature. Like Kang Hee was talking, kind of things are going to try to bring us down to the level of these standards that justify it. You know what I mean? See? because they're unjustifiable, especially the people that are actively exploiting it, invested by it. And that's in relationship to the real problems. Exploiting our service people is the relationship to using the hospitals and relationship to these narratives with mental illnesses when they have criminals in there. You know, and I'm not a lawyer, but I believe, and there's different takes on it with different countries, but what is described as basically misprising criminalities, not just there, but with all legal nature. And with that actively exploited in relationship to not just into relationship to shared needed maintained methods of terror to all areas with needs for policing to all areas in relationship to real terror. But the real terrors are tied to interests in relationship to all the evidence fabrication natures that have been that are necessary to have been justifying value as jobs and calling jobs what they call all in game. We play New York, we'll train, who will play. So however, for example, here's one motivation. If one if one cartoon person, one cartoon company with software company draws draws a just draw a campus, draw where you want to start, draw the most exploited area, a big building, and a whole bunch of them, and I'll show you how we can make, we could do things, we could 1,000 things, and we could do 1,000 tasks together in New York. We could bring in characters from other cities too. We could have a method. We could work with other nations. New York's already a hub for all these nations. Where we have to change the human value nature system back to understanding why we are a correlation nature three ways: male, female, and species. To understand too with our kids. So anyone could have a female, and you want them protected. And males have things that need to be protected too against the law. In other words, exploitations of all ages of innocence, all types in relationship to linguistic fronts we lost to in the American Revolution. Not by accident. Every nation lost to these. Every semi-ancient nation they lost. Because they didn't understand the nature of this organized crime, criminal persuasions to all areas. The captive human value nature system, ill, the linguistic fields, a virus, indifference, nature, virus, in relationship to nature inherent to consciousness, not let be, so for us to go. Only three ways to itself: unobstructed, positive value, nature. Not. Thank you for your time.